Welcome to the BAM Pod.
Hey, Northern California bass anglers. Ready to elevate your fishing game? Ford Fairfield partners with Bass Angler Magazine to offer top-notch trucks tailored for your needs. Our simple pricing ensures a fair deal and exceptional service. We live and breathe bass fishing, participating in local tournaments to understand exactly what you need so you never miss a good bite. Visit Ford Fairfield today and let's hit the water together.
All right, welcome in everybody to the BAM Pod. I'm your host, Big Ed, and on the line tonight, I went out and I got our, and by when I say our, I'm talking about the BAM Trail, everybody. The BAM, the Kayak Angler of the Year. On the line tonight, Mr. Joey Silva. Welcome into the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to talk bass fishing now that we're kind of in the off season. I'm kind of itching to get on the lake and I can't. The shorter days, so yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's that time of year when, you know, we kind of crowned everybody this year. We got our champions in every event. This guy went out. You know, we talked to Tyler Madden at our last show. He won the Angler of the Year on our pro side, and it is one of those things that's very difficult to do. And doing it in a kayak and doing it against the field that we have in BAM, there are some darn good anglers out there. And this man went out there. He took a first place, a second place, a third place, and a third place. And that got him the Angler of the Year. But here's the funny part. Just before the show, we were kind of talking about it. We said, you know, he goes, last year would have been more impressive if I'd done it because I took 3 first places and did not win Angler of the Year. You know, that's impressive right there that you would win that many. But it just shows you that it's not about the wins. It's about how you go out there and compete all year long, get consistent, and you can take this AOY. You know, it's good events out there. You did a great job, man. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, how you did it and, you know, how did you, you know, what was your, you know, your main focus going into this whole thing? Was it AOY?
Yeah, like you said, in 2024, I basically had kind of almost a perfect year, and it just shows that if you're not consistent through every single event, you can really not clinch AOI. I think last year, 2024, Damian Tao, absolute stick in our circuit. You know, he inched it out, and I think the difference overall throughout the year was a quarter of an inch. I remember we started off at Lake Rollins in 24, and a quarter of an inch was a matter of 3 places. And so the way I look at it, 2024, I came so close. I came within a quarter of an inch of that title and didn't cinch it. So going into 25, there was really, I didn't expect to, there's really no point where I thought that, you know, I have it. I believe I led it for the whole year. Started off at Clear Lake, breaking my personal best limit with 103 inches, which I put all fish to scale, and it was 33 pounds of bass at Clear Lake in February, and did not come close to the first place spot, which it was Reed Frazier, who I believe put every single fish to scale and was about 40 pounds on Clear Lake to win that event to start the year in 25. And so yeah, it was 5 inches, 103 inches to his 107, 4 inches back, which is a pretty big margin. So not only did I not clinch it in 24, my personal best cracked limit to start 2025, and I was pretty sizably short of first place. So that just goes to show you, you know, with BAM having a short schedule, with these anglers just being absolute sticks, you really have to fish a perfect season almost and not have an event where you fall out of the running because every inch, every quarter inch counts at the end of the year.
Wow, that's impressive to think that just a quarter of an inch means so much. You know, it's you know, I'm on the side where we're dealing with weight most of the time, or keepers. But with, you know, the Super 60, we're with the keepers, we're with the weights. But weight is so important for most of everything we normally deal with. And in kayak fishing, it is so different that we go to this inches. And I don't know, is there a way to do weight, I mean, with the kayaks, or is this the way, you know, because I've never really fished kayaks competitively at all. I've fished a couple of times out of them, but would it make sense to do weight at all, or can you only do inches because of this?
I don't think you could successfully manage weight in a tournament, it would require kayakers to somehow manage a live well system or to use a competitive tracker like the Bubba scale, which, like how fallible
Right.
those things are if there's not like a marshal on the boat, which obviously you can't carry someone on the boat with you. So I don't think it's really possible, but I think kayak anglers are really happy with the system that we have. We've kind of accepted that, yeah, I could have a 22-inch bass that could be 7 pounds. Someone else could weigh a 22-inch or measure a 22-inch fish and it's 10 pounds, but we
Mhm.
essentially score the same thing. At the end of the year, it's all going to average out to be roughly the same thing. And the person with the highest weight is going to be the person with the highest inches. So we've kind of accepted that little margin that's a little bit off as kayak
Right.
anglers. And I think we're all pretty happy with it.
That's a great way to put that, though. I mean, to think about it, because you don't know sometimes. That like you said, a 22-inch fish can be 7 pounds. It could be 8 pounds. Could be kind of depends on what it was and how it goes. But that's a good way. I've never really thought about it that way, but that is an impressive way to go with that, and it does make it a nice even playing field out there. That you're only going by length and not worrying about the whole weight overall kind of thing, and it would be competitive. Now. When you're dealing with length like that, is there are they being tracked? Do you know what other guys are putting out there when you're doing it?
Yeah, if they're actually like submitting the fish on time, which you kind of know who the sandbaggers are who wait till like the last hour or after the fishing end time to submit
Yeah.
their fish. You can pull up the leaderboard, you can see kind of how the lake is fishing, see where other anglers have scored, and kind of get a feel, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not the whole truth.
Right.
I know for me, I've been burned by submitting my fish early, letting people know, hey, Joey Silva has 100 inches. It's halfway through the day. I need to swing for the fences in order to beat that 100-inch mark. So there's a strategy that goes into it. Some people don't submit, some people do.
Hmm.
But you can usually get a vibe by pulling up the leaderboard in the middle of the day.
Okay. Is it you say it's kind of like, oh, I've gotten burned that way. How does it really affect you? I mean, do you fish differently if you know somebody's just like, hey, this guy's kicking my butt. I got to do something, or is it just like I can't do anything different? Well, I mean, what really turns that on?
I used to think that submitting early when you have a really good bag was a deterrent for people. Like it would kind of maybe break their spirit a little bit, give you a little
Yeah.
bit of an edge. What I found is that the really good guys will actually adapt. For example, there's this, and I don't know that he made this decision because of the leaderboard, but it kind of seemed that way. There's
Mm-hmm.
an angler in the Yakabas Trail who I know pivoted to a Magnum spoon when I was submitting my fish, and I had a pretty good score. And he ended up getting big fish off a Magnum spoon. So
Wow.
I think his decision making was like, okay, I need a big here, and they made a technique decision
Hmm.
that ended up costing me. So there's little instances of that where there's a little chess match going on. I think overall it's probably a little better to play your cards close to the vest and not let people know what you're up to.
Okay. I mean, that's the difference. I think we have we got the tracker and that sort of thing too on the on the Super 60 and that sort of deal. But it is one of those ones that it's hard to think about. The difference between the two for me really is I've been watching and seen and watched what Michael's been doing and watching the kayak series go is not really the fishing itself. It's just the speed. That's really the only thing that I find major different. The skill level is there. I mean, you guys are out there, you're still competing. The only thing that I kind of learned is the technique. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that techniques because I feel like there's been a couple that have really I guess the easiest way or hard best way to say it is really stood out because they've won a lot is and I don't even know what it is. It's called I don't they I don't know. I've heard it said before, and I'm trying to think what it's called. They throw a bait out in front of their forward facing sonar, and then just watch it come back. What is this technique called?
Mid strolling,
Mid strolling.
yeah, mid strolling, fishing the minnow, the Miki rig. I
Okay.
think that's caught a lot of fire in the last 2 years. It, it's something that I feel like I'm really, really good at is that technique, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is, and that's the one I heard. That's the one and I don't really understand it, but I've heard some really big fish being caught on it. I've heard that really consistently a lot of fish. Has this is I mean, and I'm guessing that this means you can only use this technique with forward facing sonar. Is that fair to say, or
Yeah.
is that really how is that the only way it fishes?
Yeah, it's really the technique that's gotten turned the bass fishing world. It's put it on fire the last 4 years. This technique has really dominated bass fishing,
Hmm.
and it's starting to dominate the kayak end of things too.
Okay.
Like I said, that Clear Lake event in February, it was cold water situation, and the top three guys were using the same bait, unbeknownst to each other, using a mooch minnow mid-strolling for big bass offshore that were chasing bait. And the reason why that's so powerful is you can present a minnow style bait on top of a fish's head with forward facing sonar. And on that specific day, the bass wanted it 6 inches to a foot off their head for them to even react to it. And there's no way to precisely do that unless you can see them on screen.
Right. Huh. Yeah, that's a very so did it so it the way you just said that it sounds like it didn't really start in kayaks, but it has progressed to it. So again, we're back into it's something that was in more traditional style, and now the kayak guys have really picked it up, and you've run with it to
Yeah, I think
to become
traditional.
better.
I think it developed probably on the northern lakes before forward-facing sonar. I think it was originally called moping. A lot of the Great Lakes anglers would drop two marks on their 2D sonar under their boat with a little jig head and a minnow, and they would just kind of video game fish directly under the boat on 2D marks with 2D sonar. And once we had, Panoptix live scope, now you can place that minnow on top of a fish's head 40, 60, 100 feet in front of the boat. And it seems like whoever can do that more rapidly, more efficiently, whether it's boat or kayak, has a very strong chance of winning in a suspended fish situation.
So you're telling me right here, right now, that this actually all started ice fishing.
Probably, yeah. Actually, it's really glorified
guys
ice
took
fishing.
because I
Think
mean
about
you
it.
just described what ice fishing is. It's like, oh, drop a little lead head down there with a minnow and drop, shake it up and down, and bass come up or fish come up and eat it, right?
Yeah.
That's
No,
kind of
that makes a lot
crazy.
of sense.
That's kind of crazy to think, but that'll make my wife happy. So it's one of those things that you hear about techniques and styles and things that come along. I mean, when the A rig came out, it's the giant thing, and then it was this, and then it was and then forward facing sonar came on. How is I mean, obviously it's been a game changer when it comes to kayak fishing. Is this forward facing sonar? Has it really become one of those things that if you go out and get a kayak, you better get that? That better be your next step.
Yeah, I think pre-live scope, we really had on average from lake to lake, probably a 92 to 95 inch limit
Hmm.
was the winning score or the winning limit.
Okay.
We've seen that now to where, like, let's just take this year's schedule. Clear Lake, it took 107
Hmm.
inches to win that event, which was 40 pounds of bass. In Pedro, it took 98 and a half, I believe. Thermalito took 101.5. And then what was the other one? Delta, I think it took 99. So you're really looking at a 100-inch average, which is pretty significant pre-scope. It was probably 92 to 95. So the weights have gone up because of forward-facing sonar, or it could be because people just get better. But I think that definitely plays the factor. Like
Yeah, it's got
increases technology, it plays.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be one of kind of maybe a combination of the both. I mean, guys are getting better because of it, but at the same time, they're learning this new technique and going out and applying it and catching better fish. Looking at this, winning Angler of the Year this year. Um, is there a point in time? I think it's one of those ones for me that when you go out and you place really well. Yeah, you win an event. Then you go and you have like you said, you had a second. Then you had a third. You had a third. At what point do you really think, wait, I gotta like pivot or I gotta focus and I gotta take this Angler of the Year thing? I mean, what event was it just like I gotta focus because I think I got a shot at this?
Randall and I want to talk to you real quick about choosing the right electronics mount for your bass boat.
And we know the quality and effort that BAM Foster has put into this company.
So what you get is a custom fitted mount, not some mass produced universal mount for every bass boat out there.
Seat pedestal plugs, tool holders, steering wheel spacers, and battery trays are all made with the same attention to detail that Bass Boat Technologies is known for. Check them out at bassboattech.com. You'll be glad you did.
So going into the season, I treated every event. I wanted AOY bad in 2025, and it was because I felt like I came a quarter inch short in 24 of cinching AOY. All those wins, and I don't want to say nothing to show for it, but being so close and not clinching it really put a fire under me in 25. So I did my map study in 25. In the off season, I worked on techniques that definitely played in 25 that I was not good at in 24. And throughout the whole season, I never felt like I could win it. Like I said, 24 came close. 25, first event, destroyed my personal best limit, one of the best limits in California in recent history, and got blown out. So at no point was I ever comfortable throughout the season and thought, okay, I'm safe. So it wasn't until the very last tournament of the year at the Delta, I was actually started by scoping on the Delta. It was high tide. And I launched out of marina, so there was, docks and slips. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna spend 2 hours scoping during high tide because there's deep water. Right away, I caught like a 7-8 pounder on a Nico rig live scoping. And that's when I'm like, okay, last event of the year, I could clinch it, shut the door on AOY today because I was leading going into that event. And, I knew I had probably big fish of the tournament at that point. And so scoped up a few more fish and then finished my limit on top water. And I ended up finishing third in that event, but it wasn't and didn't play into my top three because I had a first, second, and third, so I didn't need the third for the drop tournament. But the Delta was when I felt like, okay, now's my chance to shut the door on this thing. It's within grasp. Let's do this. But at no point throughout the whole rest of the season did I ever feel like I had it. They're just people. The anglers are just too good.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing is that I feel like, I asked Tyler that same question. And it's kind of like, you never do because these guys are just really good, and you are fishing. You're fishing in the BAM Trail has drawn out some of the best anglers that I just watching and hearing when I listen to Michael talk about who's winning this thing, who's doing it, who's doing well. There's some big names that are going, the kayak way and fishing. That's good stuff. The payouts are decent, and it's going to get better, of course, but it's going to keep. I feel like it's going to keep going, and it's growing. This sport in the kayak division has really, really, really become something prevalent, and I think it's one of those ones that, watching the way you guys do it and seeing the way it is, it's going to keep growing. Have you been happy with what you've been seeing out there as far as like the way that BAM's going with all this?
Yeah, I mean, before BAM, we always had Yakka bass, which is a great trail in itself. We had Wild West for a few years, but that went the direction that it went. What we really needed was like another professional level trail with transparent, payouts. And Bray takes, angler feedback and he creates the rules based on angler feedback. We take a vote. It doesn't mean that will become the rule, but he asks for it and we give our thoughts on it. And then I can't imagine the kayak side makes, any amount of money for BAM. So for them to even run, a kayak circuit and to put us in the magazine, to put us on their social media accounts and allow us to grow our channels and our reputation and give us a space to compete is really something special. And, those guys don't, put 50% effort into it. They really go all out, even with the kayak stuff. And I think people, whether they say it or not, are really appreciative of Mike and Bray.
It's definitely interesting to see. And I often wonder, so I'll just ask the question because I can. When you are fishing the kayak, is your ultimate goal to move up to traditional style out of a boat? Or is it, I love what I do in the kayak and it just fits the way I fish and how I do it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to speak for most kayak anglers, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but this is my feel on things. So I think most kayak anglers don't have a strong interest in going to the boat side.
Okay.
I think if we're taking the kayak stuff seriously, you're trying to climb the ranks of the kayak angler circuits. You're trying to make a name for yourself, but not in the hopes that you're going to hop. It's not a practice
Right.
playground for you to hop to the boat side. There are guys like I know Dominic Doan, a great kayak angler. He just hopped to the boat side, and that's what he wants. But I think that's probably the exception to the rule. I know like one of the best anglers we have is Damien Tao, and I believe he's been fishing from a kayak for going on 10 to 15 years, and that guy hasn't made the hop to the boat side yet. And I know for myself, I don't have that interest right now. But yeah, I think most kayak anglers think of it the same way.
Okay. I mean, because I look at it and go, these guys are just as competitive. I don't think there's anything that separates the way you do it. In fact, most of the time, I think that the kayak anglers just have that. And I think I'm trying to remember who it was that I was talking to. And they were just, it really teaches you how to slow down and fish a body of water more consistently. I mean, you don't have the ability to run an entire lake in a day. You've got to find right spots, got to do that work, got to do your homework a little bit more, and really focus on where you think those fish are going to be. And I think that's just so impressive the way that you can break down a lake a little bit. I feel like you break down lakes better than the guys in boats for sure. Is that something that you've really learned from this? And what do you see the future of this thing? Because when it started, it was pretty small. I mean, it was a very small thing, and it is really, really blown up.
Yeah, well, let's take like Mike Iaconelli, for example. He
Okay.
fished the kayak side out of a Hobie, sponsored by Hobie for a few years. I believe it took him 2 or 3 years to get a win. So it's definitely a space
Mm.
with competitive play where even with tournament experience on the boat side, you're going to have to fight your way for a victory on the kayak side, in my opinion. Now that was on the Bassmaster kayak side, so there's a
Right.
little bit higher level of competition, but there's a lot of sticks here. Um, and then where do I think it's going? I think kayak is in a unique spot to where there's a lower level of bar of entry. So it has
Okay.
the potential of accruing more anglers than the boat side, at least over time, in my opinion. Um, and so whatever we can do to get new people in and have them stay, I think it has the potential of maybe in its own way being bigger than the boat side. I'm not saying it'll ever overtake it in popularity,
Right.
but it could be have more numbers in a tournament potentially. But even with the kayaks, it can get really expensive. We have outboards, trolling motors, live scope units. I've seen as much as 3 or 4 fish finders, on a kayak. So it can definitely get expensive, and the bar for entry is actually getting higher every year.
Yeah, I did. I went out with Mark and we were doing some filming. And I was absolutely blown away. I think it was on Trinity, and it was just like there are a lot of guys out there with with a lot of
A
electric.
lot of gear.
That was not like, oh, I got $500 and I went out and got a kayak and said good enough and I'm out there. There was some money that had been spent on those things. There were some guys in that 3, 5, $6,000 range, I think, that had
Oh,
stuff up
easy.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like easy. And the only thing that I thought was so different was when he did the blast off, and it was the shotgun style. Hey, everybody goes from the same spot. You've all got a shot. You all got the same deal. Everybody's got to go to where they're going to go. And that was probably the most different thing that I had seen is like, oh, okay, so you're going to start just everybody starts at the same spot. And I've heard that other ones, oh, you can launch wherever you want, which I don't know how that kind of takes. I don't know if that takes some competitiveness out of it because you can go anywhere or how those work. But I don't know. I think that Mark's doing it. I like the way he did it.
Yeah, the shotgun launch is definitely a camaraderie community thing.
Okay.
It's more fun, definitely. Now, the circuits that do allow open launch, you will actually see anglers hop from ramp to ramp. They will get in their car, drive to the other side of the lake, and relaunch if they feel like their area isn't doing good enough for them. So you
Okay.
do still have some freedom of movement. And a kayak, you can cover 20 plus miles in a kayak if you're on that trolling motor, power fishing, or you're just running scope and covering as much water as possible. But there's something special to the shotgun launches with the national anthem that BAM does. It definitely gets you going and gets you in that like mindset in the morning. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think it gives you that nice little, like you said, a little bit of a pickup, and it's like, yeah, we're okay, we're in this thing. It's
Yeah.
it's it's something great to be out there, and being around it is just it was fun to see, fun to watch, seeing how competitive you guys are, how this is like not a joke. You are, it's like, oh no, they're not out here to, hopefully they catch, a few fish in a day. There are
Yeah,
some serious competitors.
I would think 6 grand is probably the average for a BAM angler that's competing in every event of the year. I would venture to guess they're running $6,000 rigs. Like I
Okay.
know for me, I'm running a powerful move on my kayak, and that alone's $5,000.
Wow.
And the kayak's 3,000. That's not accounting for. So we spend a lot of money. We try to get the edges where we can. We try to put more fish finders and all that stuff. We just, we love everything that goes on a boat. We put on our kayaks as well.
Now, the way that you kind of talked about, the and I'm still the technique that you were using, the style of it, trying to get kind of away from that. Is this still a traditional fishery? I mean, can you still go out there and throw the spinner baits, throw the jigs, throw the crankbait? Is that something that's going to work anymore, or is this like, you know what? And if you're doing this, you got to be doing this mid drifting,
Mid strolling.
mid strolling.
Yep.
I got to write that down.
I think it depends on the fishery. If you go to like these highland reservoirs, like a Pedro or a McClure or a Folsom, mid strolling is going to play in a lot in the fall and in the winter, early
Okay.
spring. Probably it's really powerful during those times. Now, if you're outside of the window, that's when those other techniques, in my opinion, open up and you can win a tournament on a spinner bait, a crankbait, and traditional techniques.
Okay.
And then lakes like Clear Lake and the Delta, obviously, you have a chance throwing anything on those lakes, in my opinion. So although it's a pretty powerful technique on highland reservoirs, I think lake selection matters a lot, time of year matters a lot, and those other techniques do play. It just matters what lake, what time of year, or the combination of both.
Okay. And the other thing with that is, I guess it's, we all think, it's like, we all feel, size matters when it comes to bass fishing. You're going for that. But we always accumulate it or think about it with, um, you know, oh, I got a 5 pounder, I got to get you 6 pounder. You don't really care when you're doing this. I mean, you're going for these inches. Is it an accumulative thing? The inches you just keep, the more the more fish you catch, the more it is. So, are you focusing on numbers rather than size, or are you kind of going at
You're still going for
size
those.
matters?
You're still going for those larger fish. You're looking for your best five. So like at Clear Lake, you're
Okay.
looking for those 22-inch bass, those 21-inch bass that are weighing 6 to 8 pounds. Like you really need to find those and put 3 in your bag to win a tournament on that.
Um, oh, I think my mic died. Can you hear me?
I can hear you still.
Okay. So yeah, we're looking for those big fish. It's not a all fish counts format or any fish counts.
Right.
So you're looking for 5 big ones. So like if
Okay.
you go to a Pedro, right, you really need to have one largemouth kicker, one 4 to 6 pound largemouth that's in your bag, and the rest of really good spots in like the 17 to 9 inch, 19-inch, 3 to 4 pound class to win those tournaments. So it just depends on the lake, but you're looking for 5 big ones.
And basically, what you're saying is that technique is, maybe I'm saying it. Technique has kind of gone out the window a little bit with this, and you're just focusing on this technique nowadays. Do you think that it's always going to be the one that catches the better fish?
No, I don't think so at all. Like in 24, mid strolling was for me, it was the technique I would go to. I did really well all year on that technique. This year, it didn't play as much. It played in Clear Lake for the top three anglers, where you almost had to be mid strolling in order to do well at Clear Lake in February, and get that 30 plus pound bag. For the rest of the season, mid strolling did not play for me, and I don't know if it played. Maybe it's just the way the schedule laid out. But for me, the Nico rig was probably my dominant
Okay.
technique,
Hmm.
and mid strolling took a back seat. So it just depends how the schedule lays out. But definitely a powerful technique. People need to learn it. But this year, it was not a huge player besides Clear Lake.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's just, I hear this mid strolling, mid strolling, so it's one of those things that you kind of do. But like I said, I feel like, everything has its cycle. Like I don't know if it'll go away as much, but like the A rig, it really has its time and its place. And I'm guessing the way that you're talking about, because you just said it, is that mid strolling has its time and place as well. So it's not going to always be the most dominant, the most dominant technique, but there's so many other ones out there that I feel like, it's a tougher one to think about when you go with the kayaking. Like, I feel like you can't quite switch up as easy, or is it just, I mean, the way it is now, I guess that's the hardest part for me to try to portray to everybody out there, is it's like kayak fishing is definitely taking, it's not just you sitting down out there throwing bait, throwing one bait all the time in one spot, and that it has definitely changed. I've seen the rod racks on guys, they've got just as many as you would on a boat.
Tackle Warehouse has been the premier online tackle shop since 2003, with a huge selection of not only the latest and greatest from the biggest brands, but the hard-to-find regional specialties as well. Tackle Warehouse. Click, save, fish.
Well, rolling with 15 rods out there, man. They're loading down those kayaks to, you know. But yeah, in terms of like mid strolling, with that said, even though it wasn't a huge player for me, like it was probably like 25 to 30% of my fish this year. Even though it didn't play as my primary technique for the year, it's probably something that kayak anglers and boat anglers, the number one technique they need to learn to be competitive in bass fishing in the current meta, the current way of doing things in competition right now, especially in California. California is primarily highland reservoirs where,
Right.
Bass are not necessarily like on structure. They're kind of roaming around on a lot of these lakes because of the steep contours, and it's probably the number one technique that anglers need to learn to be competitive right now. And
Well,
it'll be that way for a while, I think.
okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about, your bodies of water. You've got a first, you had a third, you had three thirds, man. Or no, is it two thirds? Two thirds and a second. So, I mean, you were very consistent. You did a great job. You got the Angler of the Year. But what was your favorite water out there? What was the one that you were just like, you know what, when this one comes up, this is the one I wanted to fish this year?
The one I was looking forward to the most was I think it was Party and or Almanor, and both of them got canceled, both for different
Oh,
reasons. So I actually my two strong suits were taken off the table. Um, Clear Lake, I love Clear Lake, but like I said, everything plays at Clear Lake, so I feel like it gets away from my strengths. Thermalito Afterbays, I believe it
mm,
was known as like a power fishing fishery. Like it's a
right.
lot of like getting up in those toolies. Not my strong suit, so it wasn't exactly looking forward to that one. The Delta, I try to just get by on the Delta. I'm not a huge running gun power fisherman.
Okay.
Um, and then Pedro, I was like, Pedro, I'm gonna do well. Ended up getting a third, so it was actually my worst finish. Was the one lake I thought was my strong suit.
Hmm.
So in terms of like favorites, like Clear Lake, it's hard to not look back fondly at a 33-pound bag of fish. But I think if I had to like choose like a favorite event of the year, it was probably either the Delta or the Thermalito Afterbay, the two fisheries I did not expect to have too much fun at or to like have an advantage at. And I think the reason why I look fondly back at the Thermalito Afterbay is because I struggled for I think 6 of the 8 hours on that fishery, did not have a competitive limit until the last 90 minutes, 2 hours.
Hmm.
And then I put probably 24, 25, 26 pounds of bass in the boat in 90 minutes at the very end. And it made the day very
Wow.
memorable. It was exciting. It was definitely, I found a magic spot, which I've never done before. And just, they were loaded on it with, 5-pound bass. So that's the one I look back fondly at. But when I looked at the schedule, I'm like, Pedro's probably my strong suit with the changes. And it actually ended up being my worst finish.
Wow. Um, and now we've got, next year things are getting better. I mean, the Bray's doing a great job of setting these things up. What do you think of the schedule coming up this next year? And how are you going to get more people? Because you said that earlier. We need to get more guys out there. How are we going to get more people out there? Because this schedule looks pretty good and the payouts look nice. And
Yeah, I think the lake selection was actually really good for this next year. Like 2025 schedule before the changes
hmm,
was kind of a Dreamfish Lake schedule.
okay,
Party, Almanor, Clear Lake, Delta, and I might be forgetting another one. But those lakes were like they require a lot of traveling,
right.
and really only the hardcore anglers. We have a group of like 30 guys who are really hardcore, will show up to every single event. But in 25, the casual guys, they weren't necessarily going to travel to those lakes. And I
Okay.
think Bray might have saw that and pivoted for 2026. And we're sticking a little bit closer to the greater Sacramento area. I know we're going to Eastman, which we have
Right.
a hardcore group of Central Valley guys. They have their own circuit, the Central Valley Kayak Circuit,
Yeah.
and that's going to pay them a favor of, hey, we're going to go to Eastman, which
Mm.
is, I believe there's just a really good fish caught out of there. I don't want to,
Oh, there are some monster fish in there. That
yeah,
place,
there's
I've
some,
I've fished in that thing when I lived down there a lot, and that is a really good fishery. That is
it
a
is full
really
of big teeners for
yes,
sure.
yes,
And we're going to go
absolutely.
there. And maybe that'll be an incentive for the Central Valley guys to one, enroll in that one tournament, but maybe to follow the whole schedule throughout the season and
Yeah.
make their way up and to end it on Shasta, which
Mm.
for me, Shasta is where it all started. It was my first kayak tournament. It's where I fell in love with kayak tournament fishing. In 22, there was an event for Wild West at Shasta, and I remember launching with 130 guys
Wow.
in in January in 45, degree air temps with the wind blowing in our face, just firing off into the night in motorized kayaks. And I'm like, this is what I'm doing for the foreseeable future. So I haven't been back since. So I'm really looking forward to the championship to end it on Shasta because that's a special place in my heart. But yeah, the schedule looks good. We're going back to Clear Lake, and who can
Yeah.
hate that?
I don't know. That's the whole thing with guy. I mean, is that the one? I mean, you say Shasta. Is that the one you're looking forward to the most
I
in
think
the
so.
schedule? Yeah.
Yeah,
That'll be a
Eastman's
good
up there
one.
too.
Yeah, Eastman. Yeah, Eastman I've had some really good times on Eastman. It's a
Yeah,
good body of water to fish. I know it's one of those ones down the Central Valley, and I think guys down there really should come out. And it's the traveling is I don't know if it's easier or harder to do. I don't know. It seems like if you can just throw your kayak in and go and kind of get out there, the traveling shouldn't be nearly as bad. But I guess you're not really fishing for as much money. You don't have that $50,000 dangling out there like the
yeah, and
super
that's the
secret
thing is
fishing.
it gets really expensive, right? With the gas and the entry
Yeah.
fees, you really have to crack one or two to make money.
Well, that's
Um,
some of the reasons why maybe we should go out of state. We get better gas prices.
yeah, yeah, really. Yeah, as soon as I crossed into Arizona going to do a Havasu tournament or this year, it dropped down to like $2.30, and I'm
Right.
like, man, why am I in California?
It's a tough one. Trust me. That's a definite eye opener when you get out of the state, and as long as you're not going to Oregon or Washington. I mean, those states are the same as prices that we are
Yeah,
basically. But
yeah,
yeah, you start going down towards Arizona and Nevada and all. So it's like, wait, why is it so
yeah.
much
Why can't we
cheaper?
have
Can
this?
I? Anybody bring
Why is gas
buckets?
$5?
Right, exactly. It's your governor. Um,
Yeah, do it for the love of the game. That's what it is.
it
None of us are
is.
making money. We're just trying to do it for the love of the game.
It is, and I see that that's the biggest difference is I think that's something you can actually say we do it for the love of the game because there's not much money in it. I mean, don't get me wrong, you go out and you spend you just talked about, oh, I spent about $8,000 on equipment alone. I know bass fishing and I know this equipment, when you talk about your boat and your electronics and your trolling motor, you're probably into it 10 grand. That's
Yeah.
a drop in the bucket compared to all the other stuff that you're going to buy: rods, reels, line, baits. 10 grand is the small part. I've got a wall in my garage that, trust me, has got more than 10 grand hanging on it.
I've got an expensive taste in rods and reels. I
Yeah.
run some expensive stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a drop in the bucket. None
So
of us are, few of us are responsible
no,
financially.
no, but it's one of those things that it's I dropped a little bit of money on my equipment, and I'm not getting a lot of it back. It's I would say it was different if you're going out there going, yeah, we're fishing for 60, $70,000 for the year, or for the for an event. We go out there and, yeah, there's a $50,000 prize purse hanging up there. Yeah, now we're doing it for a living. I want to make some money doing this thing. And maybe one of these days it'll get there. We'll just keep pushing on Mark, saying, "Hey, you know what? The kayaks need to make more money." But like you said, he doesn't make a ton with the kayaks, but it is out there, and it's definitely a division that I know Michael Bray has it in his heart too, that he loves having it out there and loves doing it and loves running it. So it's definitely going to be around for a long time. And I mean, I look at the trophies behind you right now. You guys can't see it, but trust me. I mean, he's got 7 of our trophy, of the BAM trophies, hanging on the wall right there, and then some round things. And I think those are probably from Yakabas.
Yep, yeah, that's the 2025 Yak Bass trophies. But front and center is that BAM Angler of the Year trophy.
Yep, it's definitely there. It's a nice big trophy, and it was definitely worth going out and getting, man. I mean, you did a great job. Just to be so consistent is so tough, and it's I don't know. It's a hard one to say. Angler of the Year is the one that everybody wants to win the championships. Everyone, but I think Angler of the Year is that one that you just it's like that's the one, man. You did an amazing job doing that. Going up against a bunch of really good guys. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do against the anglers that are out on the West Coast right now.
Yeah, the West Coast is definitely stacked. There's a lot of good anglers out here, and you really have to put together a perfect season to clinch that trophy. But we all want to do it once, man. Like that's what the grind is for. Is like a win's great, but we all have our eyes set on Angler of the Year for the guys that are showing up,
Well,
for every.
and here's the thing. Next year, you get to try and start all over again. And this is it's does anything when you look at it, does anything stand out to you? You go, you know what, this could unfold very well for me again. The way it is with the circuit, how it is, talking about some good bodies of water right there. I mean, Shasta, Eastman, Delta again, or Clear Lake again. That's what there's some good bodies of water out there. How do you feel about going into next year? You think you can repeat?
I definitely think I can repeat. I will say that like when it comes to Clear Lake's a very volatile lake where
Mm-hmm.
you have to, and I don't know if it's shotgun launch for Clear Lake, but you have to pick your ramp very carefully because simply choosing the wrong ramp can put you out of competition if it's not holding the bass. Like if they're all up in Rodman, you need to choose Rodman. If they're on offshore rock piles, you really need to be launching out of like Brados, for example, or Rattlesnake. So Clear Lake, although I love it, I feel like I'm good at it. It's a very volatile lake. Eastman is not a lake I'm familiar with. So there are a couple, wild cards in there, but I feel like I can perform on any lake. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Well, I mean, you've proven, I'm looking at the walls behind you, that you've definitely proven the kind of angler you are. And I don't feel like anybody can ever take that away from you, especially now. You get that angler of the year on the wall, and it is a major way to go. Uh, at this time in the show, I give everybody about 10 minutes, to go ahead and, thank your sponsors. Tell everybody how to follow you. Tell them how to find you. You just dropped a bunch of good stuff out there for everybody to look at and talk about. Let them know who you are, man. Joey Silva, this is your time.
Yeah. So I'll just go over a little bit about who I am. Uh, I've got two kayak rigs and I feel like they express who I am a little bit. Like I've got a 40-pound throw and go, no electronics that I throw on the Russian River here in NorCal. That's just my fun rig, and I love that just as much as like my power pole move, Bonafide XCR 130, rigged out all the electronics. So I just like fishing, whether it's a skinny body water or whether it's, competitive technology, running and gunning style fishing. So that's what I'm doing in my free time when I'm not competing is fishing. If I'm not doing that, I'm hanging out with my dog.
Mhm.
I'm hanging out with my girlfriend. We're hiking or we're camping or taking the trailer somewhere, or I'm watching the Niner game with my grandfather. But um, but yeah, for the people that support me, one of the sponsors for the Bass Angler Magazine circuit reached out to me and they wanted to work with me as well this year, and that's North Bay Fishing Tackle. They're a tackle shop in Runner Park. The owner, Mike Knott, was kind enough to be like, "Hey man, do you want to come on to our pro staff this year? I want to pick your brain on some of the bait selection that's in the shop. I want to put the items you like to fish in your tournaments on the wall in the tackle shop, and maybe you can do some like seminars in our, in shop for us." So I've just did a live scope 101 seminar. I'm sure that video is going to go up here soon for the tackle shop. But for those of you that don't know, it's a tackle shop in Runner Park. So if you're coming to fish Clear Lake, Lake Sonoma, Lake Mendocino, or maybe even Spring Lake, where the unofficial big bass record was potentially not broken, but they claim it's a 22, 24-pound bass out of Spring Lake in Santa Rosa. But there's definitely some teeners in that lake. But if you're coming to fish any of those bodies of water and you're coming from 101 in the Bay Area, stop by North Bay Fishing Tackle. All the baits I used to do well this season, the Nico Rama that I did well at Thermalito After Bay, the Mooch Minnow that I did well at Clear Lake, and even like the Mega Bass Slingshot, brand new bait. I told Mike, you got to stock this thing. I'm crushing him on it. That's at the shop as well. So there's a lot of tournament ready gear in the shop. So come stop by. Other than that, man, my partner, Kayla, she's supported me in this fishing hobby of mine for years now, and she's really proud when I do well, and she shares that with other people. So it's one thing to have someone that's lets you do these things, but also to ask for someone that's also like proud and shares in your excitement when you do well is really fun. So it makes the weekends away a little easier too to have her. So thanks to her. And shout out to Mike, not Mike, Mark Lassagne and Michael Bray. They've given us a platform that, we probably don't deserve as kayak anglers. Like I said, I don't know that they're making money on the kayak side, but they're really appreciated. And even if they don't get the thanks that I think they deserve, thanks, to them. And let's keep this thing rolling and let's grow this kayak division out. Um, I hope one day we can see multiple kayak divisions for BAM across the country. Maybe we could have a central tournament on a big body of water. I think that'd be really sweet. Um, but yeah, man, that's those are my thanks. So thanks to everybody, and yeah, thanks for having me on tonight. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. And tell us a little bit, like, do you have a Facebook page? You got social media? You got, how
Yeah,
can people follow you and go, you know what? I like what I heard from that guy. I want to see what he does this next year.
yeah, for sure. So I have a YouTube channel. I believe every event besides the Delta, I posted to Joey Silva Fishing on YouTube. So I tried my best to talk to the camera, to break down my tournament day, to show the score as the day progresses, and then the final result. So check those out. And then I have some live scope tip videos on my Instagram, which is also Joey Silva Fishing on Instagram. So you'll see my name pops up on the scoreboard as Joseph, but I go by Joey. So Joey Silva Fishing on YouTube and Instagram if you want to see some bass fishing live scope tournament content.
All right, man. That's the way, everybody. If you just heard what he's talking about out there, you want to follow this guy, you like what you heard, you want to see how this kayak thing is going to play out, man. Next year is going to be off the charts for BAM. It's growing and growing, and we're hoping it's just going to keep growing on the kayak side. Joey, thank you for coming on and doing the show, man. We really do appreciate it. Congratulations on being Angler of the Year. I hope next year you get to add a few more trophies on that wall back there. It's looking a little bare on the left side over here. We need a
Yeah,
few
we got
more.
some room for improvement.
You got some more room up there, man. So I think we can fill it in. Um, Dude, good job out there. Thank you for doing the show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and listening to this thing. I hope you really enjoyed it. And Joey, we'll see you next year out there on the kayak division.